Hello, friends. My name is Nia Thomas, and I serve Quakers across New England as part of New England Yearly Meetings staff. I am here today with Noah Merrill. We're together via Zoom. Noah serves as our yearly meeting secretary. This video is about caring for our meetings as the world contemplates reopening. It's mid-May as we're recording this, and while the risk of COVID-19 is still quite high here in New England, there are parts of the country that are beginning to reopen, and church reopenings have been highly publicized in the news lately. As part of your Quaker meeting, many questions related to the reopening process may be on your mind or on the minds of other friends. While we imagine that the time for reopening meeting houses in New England might be quite far off at this point, whenever the time comes to respond to questions and make decisions related to reopening, we know that it will be a process that requires groundedness and awareness of the practical, emotional, and ethical complexities of the situation. In order to support you in preparing for conversations about reopening, we're offering you today a guided meditation, which Noah will share in just a moment. Our hope is that by offering this guided meditation, that it is helpful to friends participating in the decisions made in your meeting over the months ahead, and that this is an opportunity to sit with complex decisions. This video is in no way meant to replace the need for regularly seeking out and following health and safety advice from trusted sources, including the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and your state public health authorities. At any point during this guided meditation, you can stop, you can go back, take a break, maybe write in your journal, or do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. So, if you need to pause before we begin the meditation, you can do that now. Otherwise, take a breath, get into a comfortable posture, and Noah will begin speaking out of the silence in just a moment.
It's good to be with you in this way, friends. So sitting quietly, I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable, and take a few slow, deep breaths. Notice how you're feeling, how your body is feeling coming into this reflection. Over the last 2 months, our lives have changed. Maybe just a little, maybe more than we might have imagined possible. For the sake of the greater good, out of love for one another, we have all given up things that are precious to us. Whether these sacrifices felt very tiny or very big, we can honor that they were real changes to each of our lives that we didn't ask for. Take a moment to silently acknowledge the sacrifices that you have made in this time. thank you. As the topic of reopening your meeting house or returning to physically gathering for worship comes to your mind, take a moment to notice what emotions arise for you. What does this bring up? Is it excitement? Fear? Unease? Hope? Confusion? Anticipation? Anxiety? Relief? Maybe you aren't sure what words to use. Whatever you notice you are feeling right now, take a moment to gently make space for it, to allow it to be held in love. Now take a moment to acknowledge your responsibility to your meeting community. Maybe you serve in a formal leadership role or serve on a committee. Regardless, your ministry, reflections, questions, and presence contribute to the life of your meeting. In being a part of a friend's meeting or worship group, who have you been called to exercise care for? Take a few breaths and bring to mind the faces of these friends and your commitments to them. Now take a moment to acknowledge your connectedness to the world beyond your local friends community. You may serve in some primary roles in your life outside your meeting, in your family, in your neighborhood or town, in your working life. You share countless points of connection with the rest of humanity and with the web of creation. Take a few breaths and bring to mind your connectedness with all that is. For the next few minutes, we'll explore some possible events in the further unfolding of this pandemic and the reopening process. This is a chance for you to notice what comes up in your mind and heart as you consider situations that may unfold. While we can't predict the future, we can invite the Spirit to prepare our hearts to be a supportive part of our meeting's response. We hope this is an opportunity to turn toward the inward guide who is always available. So I invite you to imagine that the government in your area relaxes restrictions on gatherings of small groups. How do you feel as you envision this? If your meeting is larger than the group size permitted to gather, notice what arises as you imagine your meeting considering limiting who is welcome to worship together. What do you notice the still small voice saying? Imagine now that health authorities issue different guidance about participation in public events for different people in different circumstances. If you imagine a reopening process where some people are allowed to gather in person, while others are still asked to stay at home due to their age, immunity status, or other factors outside their control, how does that feel? What wisdom is in your heart? Now imagine that larger groups are now allowed to gather, but only with intensive precautions, such as maintaining physical distance, extensive cleaning, and face coverings. Some of these precautions may be difficult for some friends in your meeting, such as children, to follow. Some of these precautions may require a lot of additional work or money to maintain. How are you called to respond? I invite you to turn again towards your guide. Now imagine that some friends in your meeting would like to explore hybrid worship and gatherings, where some friends gather in person and others connect digitally. Whose discernment, whose wisdom might you trust to address the questions this situation raises for your meeting? Are there conversations that could begin before these decisions are needed? Now imagine that your meeting begins or plans to begin the reopening process, only to learn that the risk it would pose is still significant. Maybe a swift change of course is needed. What do you want your meeting's response to say about who you are as a spiritual community? Now imagine friends from your meeting gather again in person and later learn that someone in attendance has tested positive for coronavirus. How might God work through you in your meeting's response? What concerns would you need to hold? Now imagine that friends in your meeting are sharply divided on how to approach reopening. There may be painful conflict and hurt as tensions rise. How might you stay grounded as you respond? Whose gifts might you turn to as partners in honoring the needs and desires of each person and the needs of the whole? Now imagine the resilience and care that dwells within each member of your meeting. Imagine the dynamic ministry that at its best friends can offer to one another and to the world. Imagine the gifts of each member of the community being freed for service, each friend being seen, known, and loved as a vital part of the meeting. Imagine barriers to inclusion and participation removed through the faithful work of many. And imagine the communities in relationship with your meeting growing more loving, more just, more resilient through the meeting's ministry and witness. What part might you be led to play in helping this vision be realized in the time to come, even in these days? So, turning from imagining and grounding ourselves here and now, let's take a few moments before we close to return and notice what this experience has brought up for you. I invite you to bring your awareness back to acknowledge your place in the global human community, in the web of creation. Thank you for being here. Now I invite you to bring your awareness back to your relationships with your family and friends, those you work with, live near, and serve. Thank you for all the ways you touch upon these lives. Now bring your awareness back to your participation in your friends' meeting. Recall the ways that your presence through ministry, service, leadership, and prayerful holding makes space for transformation. Your every step towards faithfulness makes a difference. Thank you. Over the months ahead, you may need to continue to change your actions for the sake of the health of others. You may be called to make sacrifices, some of which may feel small and some of which may feel too large to bear. Take a moment to imagine yourself in a future of difficult sacrifice. What loving reminders and encouragement might you be able to return to in that time? As we begin to move out of this meditation, take a moment to notice how you are feeling, how your body feels. What small action, what small step might you take after this meditation is over to care for yourself? Whatever arose for you in this experience as we close, please remember, you are beloved. You have been given precious gifts that the world needs. Your inward guide is always available. In the deepest sense, you are never alone.
Thank you. I hope that time of reflection was useful to you. We'd love to hear what your experience of the guided meditation was and how these conversations are unfolding in your meeting. You can find more resources to strengthen your local meeting and learn about other opportunities to connect with friends across New England on our website, neym.org. Thank you for being a part of this with us. Take care.